We are about 3/4 of the way through the 2024 Canadian Premier League season, and what a ride it has been. 3/4 through, and the league has very clearly established itself into a top half and bottom half, with 4 teams presenting themselves as true contenders for the CPL Championship, and 4 who seem out of the running but still potentially fighting for playoff spots. From bottom to top, this is how the season has played out for everyone so far. In last place, we had the Halifax Wanderers. Such a disappointing season for Halifax. After a 3rd place finish on a million tiebreakers last season, they came into this season with so much hype around them. They added in some key veteran players, it seemed, and everything has not gone according to plan. No one has established themselves as a true bona fide threat from open play. Dan Nimick, with 7 goals from penalties and 8 goals overall, is one behind the Golden Boot race. But with the exception of Dan Nimick regularly scoring penalties, they don't seem to have a true consistent threat up front. Big factor in that is the fact that Lorenzo Cavalry has 0 goal contributions this season. The guy was an MVP candidate last season, an MVP finalist last season, one of the best players in the Canadian Premier League, and has completely fallen off this year. No assists, no goals. The lack of getting anything really substantial from him has caused Halifax to absolutely plummet down the standings this season. That all being said, the Wanderers are 2 games in hand on Vancouver and 6 points behind them for the last playoff spot. So they very well could still finish up in a playoff spot. They are hanging around in it. They just need to get things going consistently. They need to win their games in hand. It's still very much possible, but it has not been a very good season for the Wanderers, and the fans of this team deserve far better. In 7th, we have Pacific FC. 5-5-10, the same record as Halifax, only ahead on goal differential. What did I say about Pacific? They started off early up in the standings. After a quarter way through the season, they were top 4, and I said Pacific always starts off well. This isn't a great team, and they have predictably fallen off as their early season bunch of games at home stretch has ended. Now, the real storyline between this Pacific team is the fact that in 20 matches, they have only scored 14 times. This is a historically bad offense in the Canadian Premier League. They've slowly been losing pieces of this offense for years, and it seems to have finally caught up with them as they just have absolutely nothing being created right now. Add insult to injury, Salouf was loaned out to Vancouver FC in exchange for Moses Dyer, a strong offensive option on both teams switching sides, but which 100% looks like ownership meddling, as the ownership groups of Pacific and Vancouver FC are exactly the same, and it seems like they're benefiting Vancouver FC, the team that has a better chance of actually going somewhere this season. Overall, Pacific was never expected to be a contender this season, but this is a drastic fall off from what was expected. The defense and goaltending is still solid, of course it is. Gazdov is great in net, but the lack of offense is just absolutely miserable, and this team this season might as well be a write-off of the offense they've had, but for next season they need to bring something in to get them goals. 6th place, we have Valour FC. Valour started off the season miserably, but expectedly, as you know, their first 7 games were all on the road and 14 of the remaining 21 were at home. They have used that stretch of home play to pick up and are now actually in 6th place in the standings. Jordy Swibel, the Australian signing over the winter, has proved to be a great addition, scoring 7 goals through 19 games, leading the team and 2 back of the CPL lead. And Themi Antonoglu, coming in from TFC, leads the Canadian Premier League in assists. Some very good signings for Valour, which have provided some much needed offense for this team and have helped them improve. Now, the main issue is with 35 goals against, they have the worst defense in the league, which if you told me coming into this season Valour's defense would be absolutely atrocious, but their offense would be not terrible, I would have been surprised. But they solved the offense. The defense is in desperate need of assistance right now. They very obviously are not a playoff team, but they are doing significantly better than expected coming into this season. I was expecting them to put up a historically bad Canadian Premier League season, which they have not. Don't see them making a true push for the playoffs in the last 7 games, although anything can happen. But I think this was a good stepping stone of a season for Valour, and they definitely have had some pieces establish themselves that can be rolled forward into future seasons and perform. 5th place, we have Vancouver FC. Vancouver FC, surprising season. They have fallen off a little bit from their strong start, but they have established themselves as a pretty set number 5 team in this league. 8 points behind Cavalry for 4th, but 5 points ahead of Valour for 5th. Alejandro Diaz is pretty much back. Not quite to his 2022 levels, but he has 8 goals in 21 appearances for Vancouver FC so far this season, which puts him 1 goal behind the CPL Golden Boot lead. With 26 goals for and 34 goals against, Vancouver's team offense is clicking. They've got some good pieces in Bitar, in Salouf now, Diaz obviously clicking on all cylinders. However, this defense needs work. In all reality, this is just a middling team in the CPL. However, they seem to be the only real middling team in the CPL. 5 points ahead of the bottom 3, 8 points back of the top 4. 5 teams make the playoffs, and they have put them in a very good position to end up as that number 5 team and get a playoff game, which for a team in its second season is no small feat. In 4th, as of the time of filming this, because York won last night, Cavalry FC. Cavalry continues to be Cavalry. 10 draws on the season lead the league. 3 losses on the season is the lowest in the league. More wins would be great, but they are just doing exactly what they need to do to stay competitive in this league, and yet again, they are a title contender. And what did I say about Tobias Warszewski preseason? Put him on a good team and he will score, and with 7 goals on the season, he is right there in the Golden Boot race, expectedly performing on a good Cavalry team. Dan Klump continues to be a great factor. Ali Musi, back from being injured for 3 months, adding another offensive threat to this team. Cavalry, yet again, is a title contender, yet again just being Cavalry FC, yet again in the mix, not only for the CPL championship, but the CPL regular season championship, and with just 20 goals against, they have the best defense in the league. Keep an eye on Cavalry. They probably won't win the regular season, but they definitely are true champion contenders. In 3rd, after their win last night, York United. York continues to be strong under new ownership this season. Brian Wright, with 9 goals this season, tied for 1st in the Canadian Premier League. What a season he is having. Mo Babuli adding good support. Austin Ritchie adding good support offensively too. Very strong offensive team York is. 31 goals for, 27 goals against means York scores a lot, but they also concede a lot. It's a team that, again, they have great games, they have not great games, but they definitely are in the mix for both the regular season and the playoff championship. I don't know if they have the playoff experience to do well in the playoffs, but definitely they have established themselves as a very strong team in the Canadian Premier League, and this is a season for new ownership group, new coach, a lot of new players coming in. It's a season for them all to be proud of. 2nd place, we have Atletico Ottawa. The super team is very good. It's not quite super. Ruben Del Campo, in my opinion, is the offensive surprise of the Canadian Premier League season. Did not do very well scoring last season. 9 goals, tied for tops with Brian Wright this season. Has just far and well established himself ahead of Sam Salter as the best striker on Ottawa. Now, surprisingly, with all the pieces they have, Atletico Ottawa is not 1st in the Canadian Premier League in goals for. And I think a part of that is the fact that guys like Ali Bassett, Valour are not performing and not scoring and not getting goal contributions at rates that we were used to them getting in prior seasons. And I think this might be a case of what I was saying before the season of, is there too many cooks in the kitchen? Ali Bassett, Valour, even Manny Aparicio in some instances, not being able to fully express themselves as they're not truly the key figure on this team. Sometimes the team of superstars makes your individual superstars perform not as well. They still have the best team in the CPL on paper. They still are doing incredibly well, 2nd place in the regular season so far, but it's just not what was expected of this team coming into the season. Also, shout out to Elias Iliadis, who they brought in on loan in the summer. 2 Olympicos so far in just 4 appearances for Ottawa this season. Great player he is, great young player on loan from CF Montreal. Hopefully he can continue to do well for Ottawa in the remainder of this season and get some playtime in MLS next year. And in 1st place in the Canadian Premier League right now, Forge FC. How do they keep doing it? How does Forge keep ending up in 1st place? Coming into this season, Forge had a glaring issue with this team, and that was Rubens Pasillas had left and there was no one to replace him. There was no true number 9 striker. They hadn't brought in a number 9 striker to replace Rubens Pasillas. And so a 21-year-old left back named Kwasi Poku came in and decided to be the best damn striker in the Canadian Premier League. And in fact, he fixed that problem for Forge a little bit too well, as he has since gone and moved to RWD Molenbeek in the Belgian 2nd Division, probably the best team in the Belgian 2nd Division, and leaves Forge with a hole at striker once again, which means this Forge dominance might be about to come to an end, because they just lost their number 1 striker, have not replaced him, and yet again we are back in a position where Forge is in need of a true number 9 to be the difference maker and score goals. Now, Tristan Borges, David Chouanier, Badi Banyabanga, Nana Apomu, all very good good, adding goals from the wing and the midfield, but Jordan Hamilton is not it for a starting striker on a contending championship team in the Canadian Premier League, and Taryn Campbell out injured. They desperately need him back and need him scoring at the pace he was last season and in 2021. However, with the exception of the number 9 position and the absence of Kwasi Poku, Forge just looked strong in all aspects of the pitch this season, and yet again are, as always, a contender both for the CPL Shield and CPL Championship. So that is it for this video. 7 games left for most teams in the Canadian Premier League season. The Shield is still any one of Forge, Ottawa, York, or Cavalry's. The Championship also up in the air. 4 teams fighting for it all. 4 teams fighting for the last playoff spot as well. Every single team still has something to play for as we're down into this last quarter of the season. Buckle up, it should be a wild ride.